Last night in Kabul, the United States ended 20 years of war in Afghanistan, the longest war in American history. We completed one of the biggest airlifts in history, with more than 120,000 people evacuated to safety. That number is more than double what most experts thought were possible. No nation has ever done anything like it in all of history. Only the United States had the capacity and the will and ability to do it, and we did it today. The extraordinary success of this mission was due to the incredible skill, bravery, and selfless courage of the United States military and our diplomats and intelligence professionals. For weeks, they risked their lives to get American citizens, Afghans who helped us, citizens of our allies and partners and others on board planes and out of the country. And they did it facing a crush of enormous crowds seeking to leave the country. And they did it knowing ISIS-K terrorists, sworn enemies of the Taliban, were lurking in the midst of those crowds.
No, Joe. The US exited the ongoing war in Afghanistan. It wasn't and still isn't a civil war. The power vacuum the USA created is yet to be filled by anything other than the regime that was in place previously. And the thing is about this wonderful airlift, the reason it hasn't been done before is that when a war ends, civilians don't need to be hastily evacuated because the oppressor has been subdued. However, this war hasn't ended, has it? The oppressor is still in place, the Taliban, oppressing people. And so you've got to now do this magical airlift to get them out. Not because the forever war has ended, but because the Americans have cut and run from this war.
In fact, just yesterday, the United Nations Security Council passed a resolution that sent a clear message about what the international community expects the Taliban to deliver on moving forward, notably freedom of travel, freedom to leave. And together, we are joined by over 100 countries that are determined to make sure the Taliban upholds those commitments. It will include ongoing efforts in Afghanistan to reopen the airport, as well as overland routes, allowing for continued departure to those who want to leave and deliver humanitarian assistance to the people of Afghanistan. The Taliban has made public commitments, broadcast on television and radio across Afghanistan, on safe passage for anyone wanting to leave, including those who worked alongside Americans. We don't take them by their word alone, but by their actions. And we have leverage to make sure those commitments are met. Let me be clear. Leaving August the 31st is not due to an arbitrary deadline. It was designed to save American lives. My predecessor, the former president, signed an agreement with the Taliban to remove U.S. troops by May the 1st, just months after I was inaugurated.
But what are you going to do to ensure the Taliban stick to the things that they've publicly said they're going to do? How are you going to make them comply? Sanctions? That only hurts the poor. Drone strikes? The so-called over-the-horizon solutions? You've already been doing that for 2 decades. But you never engaged with the local population, which means you had terrible intelligence failings. People used the US military to settle local petty rivalries, land feuds and scores. That's how come you ended up sending drone strikes into weddings, killing innocent civilians. And that's what you did only last week with ISIL-K, where you killed, what was it, 6 children? So is that your plan? Just to keep doing that? Because at the end of the day, what have the Taliban to fear from you now that you've taken the boots out of the ground and you're left with just drone strikes?
Remember why we went to Afghanistan in the first place? Because we were attacked by Osama bin Laden and Al Qaeda on September 11th, 2001. And they were based in Afghanistan. We delivered justice to bin Laden on May 2nd, 2011, over a decade ago. Al Qaeda was decimated. I respectfully suggest you ask yourself this question. If we'd been attacked on September 11, 2001, from Yemen instead of Afghanistan, would we have ever gone to war in Afghanistan?
In 2001, the USA was attacked by a group hiding in Afghanistan. And you, personally, Joe, made speeches saying the US needed to build a free and stable government. 10 years later, you killed Al Qaeda's leader, indeed, but in a different country, Pakistan. Now, a further 10 years on, you're leaving the people of Afghanistan to the chaotic breeding grounds of warlords and terrorism you said you were invading to prevent 2 decades ago.